It's the 26th of April, 2023. I'm out in the back garden, meditating. After a while, I get out my vape and take a few puffs. It's around 10:30 p.m. Why is it not moving? When I step in the house to Google the object that I saw, I realize that it's 30 minutes past midnight. I can't understand how did hours pass by after being outside for what seemed like just 10 or 15 minutes. Before long, I decide to head to the comfort of my bed, down in the basement. I wake up at 3 a.m. Don't be afraid. Time is not what you think it is. You will be okay. Who are you guys? We are you. My eyes feel heavy. I black out immediately. Fast forward now to 2024. April the 8th. It's 11:30 p.m. I'm back in my apartment in the city. I'm listening to the Gateway tapes, a meditation training system aiming to alter consciousness and escape the restrictions of time and space. I can't stop thinking about what happened last year. I'm frustrated. I want to see them again.
Now calm and relaxed in focus 10. Feel the energy as it moves through every cell in your physical body.
meditation tapes don't seem to be working. What am I doing wrong? Damn it. Why can't I see you again? Whoa. What on earth? Wow. They moved as if they were skipping forward in short intervals, like the trails behind a mouse on an old computer screen. Can you do that again? Do you want me to go out of town to meet you face to face? I'm in shock. They can hear me. I'm excited. I turn around and run into my apartment. I quickly put on my shoes, throw some sweatpants on over my pajamas, and head down to the car.
Great. Hello, Mario. Um, Thanks for working with me on this animation. It's been a hell of a project, and we finally got it
No
finished
problem.
the other day. Um, what did you think of the process overall?
Of how you made this?
Just the whole thing. Was it stressful? Was it
No,
frustrating?
no, no. I liked it. I liked it because I definitely did learn something new um, about my own sighting, not just how it's made and all that. Especially when you put me back into like I was able to like kind of go through like back in my head, right, like how it happened, and I noticed some other details that I didn't think of before, right?
Yeah.
So
Let's
it
talk
was
about
very interesting.
let's talk about those once we get to those details, because there were a couple of things that you mentioned during the process, and I can't remember what they are right now. Maybe it was the size of the orbs or the distance they were away from you on the balcony.
Yeah, you got that right. Um, but for those that are watching, um, unfortunately, Blender and these softwares they can't really recreate how it looks like, because I saw it from about like 15 to 20 feet away, like
Yeah.
at my eye level, and they just it's the details about it are like I don't think they can be recreated in a software, right? Like because
We had some real problems with the orbs, didn't we? We'll talk about that when
yeah,
we get to the
yeah.
orbs part. But yeah, so let's start by introducing you. Do you want to introduce yourself? Like what sort of work have you done?
Yeah, basically, my name is Mario, and so I had two sightings in total. Well, Finn, Finn like to say three, but I kind of think it's two because the
Three
first one that I
events. Yeah, I call them
three
three
events. Yeah,
separate events.
yeah, yeah, and so I don't know. Like it all happened after a very traumatic event that happened in my life. I
Yes, we were
used
just
to
talking about that before I started recording. So tell us more about that. That you had a job before all this
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. So I basically had a very popular nightclub here in um, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, Western
Okay.
Canada, and so one of the biggest mass shootings in, I think, newer history, or maybe longer, happened in front of my place and next door of my place. So 9 people got shot and one person died in front of my doorstep.
When
And
was that? Was that 22?
uh,
22?
22, I believe it was March, mid
Okay.
March. Yeah, and so that was just after COVID. So I kind of struggled with COVID as well. Like we all had to shut down just like everyone else. And it was kind of like scraping just to get by. So finally, when we, like got back on track, the shooting happened and that completely destroyed us. And so I kept pushing till end of the year. And I ended up losing everything. It was just uh, you know, fighting the windmills, right? Like regulations, and everyone was on my ass, so to say, right? Like trying to shut me down, even though I had nothing to do with it. It was
Yeah.
a gang-related incident that started in '90s, I think. So, like
Wow.
long before I even came to Canada, and so yeah, I had nothing to do with it. It was just completely out of my control. I lost everything. I found myself without a job. I lost my vehicle. Um, I was just trying to survive, and that really took a toll on me. So it was very traumatic and all that. And so basically, that led to these events. Um, because I am not a religious person. Um, I was born and raised in Europe. Many people there are just, like they're simply not religious, right? Yeah. So I was basically not raised religious, right? Uh, like most of the people, in Eastern Europe, it's kind of like a thing of a tradition. It's not, something that I would kind of seek comfort in after something traumatic, right? So I started to meditate because that was helping me. It was just kind of like it was something to occupy my mind, to calm it down and all that. And
Yeah.
basically, 4 months after I lost the business, I was working in social services here in Edmonton, and I was mostly doing night shifts, and every night, roughly an hour and a half after my shift would start, after it would start, I would go outside on a deck and meditate. And
And this is at a just so that people understand the difference in geography. The final sighting happens in an apartment in Edmonton, but this first sighting and the shadow being encounter both happen at a property that you were working at the time, which is out of the city. Is that right?
yeah,
In the
that's right. Yeah,
suburbs. Right.
yeah, suburbs. Yeah, northeast part of Edmonton.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, so the first sighting, I was meditating behind the house, and since I was dealing with a lot of pain, like from losing my business and losing my life as I knew it. So
Yeah. Sounds like
I
a
was,
very
I,
traumatic time in your life with a lot of things changing and a lot of stress.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was meditating, and at some point I said, why me? Why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? And I kept going on, and I kept saying, is there anyone out there? Can anyone hear me? And something happened. Like I saw eyes, like not normal human eyes, but they were kind of like, what we now know as kind of alien shaped eyes, right? And
And
they were in
and
my
this
head.
is this is while
Yeah,
you're in the back garden before you, because what we've got in the video is that you've kind of already been meditating, and when we join you, you've finished meditating and you're taking a puff on the vape. But I assume,
yeah,
were you just kind of sitting down on the grass in the garden meditating before that, or were you just standing where
yeah,
you stood for the vape?
yeah. I was like, so what you have on animation, I was basically just kind of like sitting there. And I stood up right after meditation, and that's where I spotted the black triangle. But basically, before that, for the like to give some more info
Yeah, yeah.
about what happened, is I saw eyes, and they were kind of oval shaped, big eyes in my head.
So
It
with
was
your
like,
eyes closed, while your eyes are closed, meditating.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I entertained it. I said, "Who are you?" And I said, if you're not product of my mind, show me something. Like, are you actually there, or it's just my mind making it up? And suddenly, more eyes showed up, more pairs of eyes behind the main big eyes. And what happened then is the background of it started spinning counterclockwise, but eyes were fixed. They were just all over, and they were fixed in a spot, while background was spinning counterclockwise, and it kept spinning faster and faster. So in that moment, it was like someone answered the cosmic phone call, and so I said again, if you whoever you are, um, show yourself, show me something, like show me that someone is watching over me, that I'm not alone, you know, and then I said to myself, oh my God, I'm making stuff up. My mind is making stuff up.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm sitting in a bad posture, and maybe I cut off my blood flow, and that's why my mind is making stuff up. So let me just open my eyes and stand up. And I opened my eyes, I stood up, and I reached into my pocket to get my vape, because I would always vape, after it. Just sit, stand there, look up, around, and vape. And I took my vape out, I took a puff, and I looked up, and I saw a black triangle. It was just standing there, like silently, no sound, nothing. So that was that's how it started.
Wow. And at that point, you're not thinking, I want to see a UFO, are you? You're just thinking, I want some kind of sign from the cosmos, or from God, or whatever it is, that there's more out there than
Yeah,
just this, and then I'm not alone, kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. I was not into UFOs. I was not familiar with the alien topic or anything like that. I was just, again, I'm not a religious person. I had to find something to cope with my
Yeah,
stress, after losing business and all that stuff. It was
sure.
just meditation was way to calm me down. But again, just so it happened that at that moment I entertained it. I saw something in my head, and I entertained it. For
Mm.
I don't know what reason, right? And so yeah, after I opened my eyes, I stood up, took a puff, and looked up, and it was there.
And when we've animated it, I have condensed time a little bit, because you actually watched it for several minutes. Is that correct?
Yeah, I watched it for about a minute or two, just standing there, and
Yeah.
another couple minutes flying away. So basically, I observed it, and I was trying to comprehend what I'm seeing, and it crossed my mind. I'm like, "This is a UFO." It actually crossed my mind because I'm 32 years old, and I'm familiar with most of the, like shapes and
Yeah.
sizes of aircrafts and drones. Um, I can distinguish what is what, like, and obviously many of them would have sound, like if the helicopter is flying at that height, it would be really loud,
You'd hear it. Yeah.
and yeah, you would hear it, right? So this was it. So yeah, it crossed my mind. I was like, is this a UFO? And
Mm.
but I was like, it's not possible, like I just said, no,
They're
it
not
can't be,
real.
right?
They're not real, Mario. So
Yeah,
it
they're
can't
not
be
real.
a UFO. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, it can be, right? And I looked up, and I was looking at it, and I was thinking. So I said, "Oh my God, why is it not moving? Like how is it standing there without no sound? Why is it not moving?" And when I said, "Why is it not moving?" it started to slowly glide. So I was looking at the north, toward north. I was facing north, and this thing started going east. It was just kind of like down the alley behind the house until I lost it out of sight. I think it
With
disappeared into the thick clouds.
Yeah, I've got it disappearing into the cloud in the animation, but when we've got it the right size, the right distance away from you, roughly,
Yeah,
and moving at roughly the right speed. Is that correct?
that's correct. Yeah, like you got everything correct about that. And for those that are curious, why, how do I know it's a black triangle and all that? So basically, on that night of 27th, so like 26th to 27th, um, so 10:30 p.m. So I remember the day like it was today. So it was basically raining earlier that day, and was a little bit cold-ish, and the sky was covered with these thick white clouds that were kind of like a little bit lower on the sky than like usual clouds that are kind of
Right,
far up. Like it was thick white clouds, and this object was a black object against a white background, so it was
right.
unmistakable.
Something that confused me when we were working on this was I was saying to you, "Are you sure it was that light out at that time of night?" And you pointed out something really important to me, that you're in. Is it northern Canada? Or
Yeah, I'm
my
in
geography
Edmonton.
is not great, so forgive me for that. But yeah, you're in a
Yeah,
part of Canada where even at that time of night, it is still quite bright at that time of year.
yeah, yeah. Like we have really long days
Mm,
half of the year, and half of other half of the year we have like really long nights. so
yeah.
so that at that time it was like it starts to get dark at around 9 o'clock. So
Okay.
like when I saw, yeah, like 9:30 ish.
Yeah.
So this happened around 10:30. So it was not super dark outside. You could still, plus, what helped is like these thick white clouds up in the
Yeah.
sky, and this black object was like right against it. So it's like, taking a piece of white paper and having a black object,
Yeah.
against it. So it's unmistakable.
Right. And it was a particular type of triangle where it's just got a white light on each point, no other lights on it,
Yeah.
no light in the middle, like a lot of people report a red flashing light or something in the middle. There was nothing like that. It was
No.
just a plain black triangle, and you
Yeah.
noticed that it had some thickness to it once it got a certain distance away.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So basically, I struggled with this a lot because I was trying to figure out what I was seeing. And a lot of people were reporting these black triangle with like a center light. So
Mm,
what I saw had no center light at all. So it was not, it was also not a super perfect triangle. Can't like the front side was tiny bit longer than the
okay.
back side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it obviously had like like typical what people report. It had three white lights underneath, one in each corner. It was not on the tip of the corner. It was like right underneath.
On the underside.
But
Yeah.
yeah, on the side, yeah. And and as you said, yeah, I mentioned that to you in private. It actually had some thickness. So when it went further away, it had a bit of a thickness
Yeah.
from behind.
And at this time that this all happens, were you a UFO nut? Like, were you already
No.
into UFOs? Were you disinterested in them, or you just heard of them in passing, like most people have?
Yeah, I heard about them in the past. Obviously, like just like everyone, I watched the X-Files and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff when I was a kid. But I was not into it. It was not my interest. I was,
right.
like most of my interest in life was, I was running a business. Like yeah,
Yeah,
too busy. Like I just, had, you know, I'm, like I was running a business for about 3 years. And that took a lot of my time. Like I
yeah, I
had
bet
no
it did.
free time, just like I don't have now. I always work, like, and I was just not into the subject, at the time. I,
Right.
I had no idea.
So at the time you're seeing this triangle, are you, after it's, you've been watching it for a while, are you thinking, my God, that is a UFO? I've heard of black triangles before, and now I've seen one. Or was it just too confusing? You were just like, what the hell is going
No,
on?
no. Basically, when I looked at it, I never heard of it before.
Okay.
It was I never heard of it before, but I knew that it's a UFO because it was so radically different than any other aircraft that you can see in the sky.
But you must have, like, in the past, like, if you look at the X Files, there are many more black triangles in the X Files than there are flying saucers. So when you're
Yeah.
thinking of UFOs before you got into it, I guess you're probably just thinking of the stereotypical flying saucer.
No, like again, I watched the X-Files when I was a kid, so
Okay,
like
fair
that
enough. It
was
was
that was
20,
like
over
20
20 years
something
ago.
years ago, right?
Yeah, that's
Like at
true.
11 p.m. At 11 p.m., like at my mom and dad's house. I don't remember everything, you know what I mean? It was so long
Sure.
ago. Like I don't remember the shapes or whatever. So
Yeah,
when I would think of UFO, um, I would think of a flying saucer, not a triangle, right?
right.
But like I knew, like it crossed my mind in that second that it's a UFO because it was so, again, it was so different. Like it was so radically different than anything that you can see in the sky, like on
Yeah.
your daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, right? Like again, like all the aircrafts have certain types of sound, like especially if they're flying that low, you would know,
Mm,
like even a drone, um, like even especially helicopter, because again, this is where I saw it is northeast side of Edmonton on the outskirts, and just north of Edmonton, there's a army base, military base, Canadian Forces base, and so I tried to debunk myself. I was challenging myself constantly. I was like, nah, it has to be, it has to be something from the base, right? Like
yeah.
it, and it has to be like it's just UFOs don't exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just that doesn't make sense, right? Like so I kept challenging myself. I kept going back and forth, but like I would like Google it, when I was in bed, and I was like, oh, it's a UFO, like everyone's saying it's a UFO, but I'm
Mm,
like, it can't be. It's not that they don't exist.
yeah.
But it's interesting.
Mm. So that's your first paranormal encounter in your whole life?
Yeah,
That triangle.
yeah,
And so then you go indoors, and I've simplified the presentation. So I've got a clock on the wall just inside the door. But what actually happened? Did you go inside, start Googling it, and then you realize that you've lost 2 hours of time?
yeah. So basically, I observed a triangle craft for what seemed to be like maybe maximum of 10 minutes, 10 minutes tops.
Mm,
I think just around there, somewhere, minute more or less, something like that. So I turned around and I was obviously, thinking about it. So I
yeah.
stepped into the house and I think I had an Apple Watch or and a phone and you know, I looked at the phone or Apple Watch or one of those and it was 30 minutes past midnight. So and I was just confused. I didn't know what to think about it. Again, I'm not familiar with. I was not familiar with the subject at the time, so seeing that it's 2 hours after, it was confusing. I was like,
Yeah. I bet it
but
was.
that can't be possible. That
And
can't be possible.
you know that you were definitely outside at 10:30. Like it couldn't be that you just got it wrong and actually you went outside at midnight and you thought it was 10:30, so you didn't actually lose any time. It's like you're pretty sure that you
No,
lost time here for some reason or something
no,
happened.
no, no. Yeah, I'm very, very ADHD person, so I have my routine.
Yeah.
Like so when I get to work, I start at 9, I do
Mm,
what I have to do.
okay.
Then I have half an hour to do, like couple like what I want, like meditate and all that. And then I have to go to bed because I have another job after that in the morning. So I'm very about routine, like very
Yeah.
much about routine. So I don't like it just it was confusing because just think about it, like you're doing something and it seemed to you like 10 minutes, like whatever, right? Anything. But then you look at the clock and it's 2 minutes past, like, sorry, 2 hours passed,
Mm.
and you're confused. Like, doesn't make any sense. It's not like you had like a short, like blackout or of a couple seconds or something like that. It was just you're
Because
just
that's
doing what you're doing.
that's what the skeptics would try to kind of shoehorn in here. They'd be like, well, you must have had some kind of little blackout or epileptic fit or something like that, and then you've woken up in the garden, and then you've walked in the house, and then you've kind of come to, and you've thought, oh, where's the time gone? But for you, it's like there was no gap. There was
No
no
gap.
kind of like this might be the moment where I lost the time. You're literally just you've got a constant train of consciousness, and in there somewhere, the 2 hours has just been deleted. Like someone is editing the movie of your life, and they've edited out 2 hours, and there's nothing that you can do about it, and you don't know how they did it or where the 2 hours went. but you're suddenly
Yeah.
now it's midnight and it should be, or it's half past midnight and it should be 10:30. Does that sound
Yeah.
kind of how it?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, like it's still possible. Like again, I want people to be skeptical about everything, and like it's okay to be skeptical again. Like there's
Yeah.
lots of BS on the internet. So like it is possible that my time that is lost is not after I saw the craft. It's when I was meditating, when I saw the eyes.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know, right? Like
Maybe it was just
ultimately I don't
the
know.
most epic meditation session of all time, but you didn't know
Yeah,
it, and so you've kind of meditated for 2 hours without even noticing because you're just a god meditator.
I don't know,
god
right?
god
But
tier of meditation.
if I have to challenge myself when I lost that time, if I
Yeah.
have to challenge myself, I would probably probably be like during meditation.
Okay. Yeah.
It still doesn't make sense because I was in a full total control of it. It's not
Yeah.
like I drifted away. Like I again, like as I said, felt like I felt weird. I was like something's wrong, so
Mm.
let me just stop. And I stopped and I stood up and all that. So I was in a total control of it, and I was meditating for maybe 10 minutes, like tops, like
I
it
feel
was
like
not a long meditation.
it's kind of like if you were meditating for 2 hours, you would notice, wouldn't you? It's like if I'm meditating for 2 hours, then that would be the longest I'd ever meditated for because it's like a few minutes and then I get bored. So I'm not a good meditator.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a big guy, I can't just, like sit in what's the name of that position, with crossed legs
Yeah,
and
you'd
all
probably
that. I
notice
can't
because
sit.
your knees would start to ache real bad.
Yeah, exactly. I'm 230 pounds, right? I can't, do like these, delicate positions and all that. That's why it crossed my mind. I was like, maybe I'm seeing this because I cut my, blood flow
Mm,
down there in legs or something like that. Like I'm just too big to, like
you just need to
sit.
do more yoga and less meditation.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Okay. So you go into the house. You go on the you say you went on your phone to Google it, so you didn't like boot up a computer or something. You just went on your phone, started
No.
Googling black triangle UFO.
Yeah. As I was walking downstairs, where I was sleeping, where like into the staff room,
Yeah.
um, I quickly Googled it. Like I just put on black triangle craft,
Yeah.
and it gave me like UFOs.
6 million UFO results come back on Google.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I went to the picture and I was like, I found a couple that looked sort of like what I saw, and like it's all UFOs. So
Hmm.
like it was unbelievable.
So then you were you in shock? Were you excited? Were you thinking, "Oh my God, I got to see a UFO"? Not many people get to have that happen.
No, I was in shock. Like honestly, I
Right.
was in shock because I said to it shattered my worldview. Because I was a hard skeptic. When it comes to these things, it just doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, you just
That's what they
assume the
tell us.
skeptic. We assume the skeptics are probably right, and it's like if it was real, more people would be talking about it. All this other stuff. The conditioning that it's not real is very very strong, and I'm like I still wrestle with
Exactly.
it today, even though I know it's real. I'm just like I can see why the skeptics think it's not. So
Yeah, and I for the good part of my life, I've been, I have two different schools. Like I was a tradesperson for a long time. Contractor or whatever you want to call it. Like used to build stuff with my hands, and like I don't, I believe in what makes sense to me, right? Like
mm,
I never believed in like stuff
woo.
that don't make sense.
You can call it
Yeah,
woo
you
if
know
you
what I
like.
mean? Yeah, or you can call it woo if you like, right? Or UFOs or ghosts or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was not, I believed what could be explained, built with my hands or someone else's hands, right? Like this was unlike anything I've ever seen.
Mm. So then you go downstairs, you jump into bed, and it's in like a staff area. So that's why we've got like a kitchen built into the same room that you're in.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, talk us through what happened next.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
oh,
basically
actually, let me
I
just
was I was at a
play the. Sorry, let me just play the video. So I've turned the volume down so we can talk over it. So you have your vape. I've got the exact model of vape that you were vaping on at the time, and I've tried to make that pretty close. So then you look up, you spot the triangle, and then so you're looking at the triangle for, if it was rough, let's say roughly 10 minutes in total. So you're looking at it for like 3 minutes maybe while it's before it starts moving, and then it takes another 2 or 3 minutes to move off
Well,
into the distance.
yeah, like 1 or 2 minutes I was looking at it while it wasn't moving. I was trying to comprehend what I was seeing. And then another 2, 3, 4 minutes, like while it glided away. And a lot of people will, maybe in the comments, they'll point out, or they'll say, why didn't you take your phone out and take video of it? Well, you know, that's very interesting, and I'll explain why. So this craft, I had a weird feeling that it was aware of me. It's kind of like looking in like deer looking in the headlights. Like
Mm. Seeing a
it
wild animal out in the, when you're driving, you see a wild animal like a big deer on the road, and it looks at you. You look at it, you know that it's spotted you.
yeah,
Is that's the impression you got?
yeah, exactly. I had the impression that it was aware of me.
Right.
It would that it was aware of me, and it seemed, because it was aware of me, and I was like trying to comprehend what it is. Like I was just kind of caught like deer in the headlights. I didn't know what to
Mm.
do. I was.
Oh, I
Just
see.
it
Yeah.
absolutely did not cross my mind to actually take a video. I regretted it. I was thinking about it
Uh,
for a long time, but
welcome to the
it
club. Yeah.
just, yeah, yeah, it was just, it absolutely did not cross my mind in any second to actually do that. Only
Does
when it flew away, and I'm like, why didn't I take photo of this? This was so weird,
Do you think it's the like the fight or flight? Some people say that there's a third one and it's freeze, and it's like when you're confronted with something and you don't know what it is, and you've been told UFOs aren't real, and yet your brain is telling you that looks like a UFO, that could be a UFO. Then I think for a lot of people, we just freeze, not out of fear. We're just paralyzed with like, well, what do I do next? I'm just gonna keep watching this thing that's not meant to be real, that's right in front of me. That's what I was thinking. When I saw the
Yeah,
triangles for the third time, I still didn't think to get my phone out. I was more thinking, oh my God, these are real and there they are. I'm not going to take my eyes off them in case I miss it. That was
yeah,
basically what was going through my head in slow motion, those kind of thoughts.
yeah, yeah. You just want to like observe for every second. You don't want to take
Yeah.
your eyes off of it, kind of thing. Because what if it disappears while you're like taking
Mm,
photo out or something like that? But it's almost as whatever that is controls what you're gonna do.
right.
Like there was some sort of connection. Like at least like when it comes to emotions, or something like that. It was
Mm.
just it absolutely did not cross my mind to.
And were you thinking, oh my God, I was just meditating asking for a sign and then I got to see a UFO, or had you not going to join the two together yet?
I did not connect it right away.
Right. Because it's kind of a
Only
bit too
only
good to
when
be
I
true, isn't it? It's a bit like, that's ridiculous. I meditated, I wanted to sign, and then I get to see a UFO. It's a
Well, it's
like,
absolutely ridiculous because, like if most of the people, when you tell them about UFOs, and especially me, when I'm walking downstairs and reading about it, looking at the pictures, like most of the people think it's aliens.
mm,
Like so that would kind of be like like someone hopping in a craft from another planet and just showing up. But like, what are the chances you're gonna see it? So like, I was sort of asking for something, and this thing showed up. So like, how do I explain that? So it was just mind blowing. Like
mm,
how like how do I explain this? Just doesn't make any sense.
yeah. Okay, so then you go in to the house, you lie down, you eventually drift off to sleep. I'm assuming, pretty soon after coming inside, so soon after midnight, you jump into bed and go to sleep. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, I was upset because I lost 2 hours of time. Again, I'm very much about routine. So
Mm,
like, I have to have enough sleep to wake up in the morning and go to another job, right? So I was upset that I lost time, and I kind of like rushed. Like I googled a little bit, and I went to sleep right away. Just so I can like be ready to work in the morning at my another job, right?
yeah.
And so basically what happened is it's the second event. I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I know that for a fact because they actually had a clock downstairs.
Okay.
And
Do you know what woke you up, or was it just a random? You're just kind of stirring, so you woke up, just kind of
I don't know.
randomly waking up. Because I wake up a couple of
It
times
seemed
a night.
it seemed to me random. It seemed to
Right.
me random, and I think I turned my head to the right, and I opened my eyes, and basically I was looking towards the washroom. Like it's kind of like a big staff room. I was looking towards the washroom, and washroom had the light on, and there was someone standing there, and it just looked like I couldn't see any features. It looked like it was a child sized, roughly, like the size of a maybe 8, 9, 10 year old child kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was just standing there, and I'm looking at it. I I was looking at it maybe for 30 seconds to a minute. I was trying to same thing. I was trying to comprehend what I'm seeing, and this thing was just standing there, and it just I freaked out in a second, because I realized it's actually there. It's not a product of my mind, and I'd like to say that I have never ever in my life had sleep paralysis
Yeah.
or hallucination. Never.
Right.
Like I don't know how it, like I just never had one.
Because
Right? I
that.
had dreams just like everyone else, but
Yeah.
like I've never seen something that is not there.
Because I think a lot of people, when they hear this, their first guess is like, when you're looking at the triangle and you're thinking, what could that be? Could it be a drone or a helicopter? No, it's not, kind of thing. Naturally, when people hear this, they will think, "Are you sure you weren't dreaming? Are you sure this wasn't just some kind of nightmare, or maybe you did wake up and you did open your eyes, but you were still dreaming, so maybe the dream was like overlaid on top of your vision?" Because when I was a kid, I used to have these very intense dreams. And I remember one occasion where I woke up, my mum was already sitting on the bed next to me because I must have been screaming or something. So she's already run into my bedroom. She's sitting on the bed. She's woken me up, or got me to kind of sit up in bed. And I remember being awake and I could see my mum, but I could also see that the dream was still happening over the top. It was a dream that I was in a whitewater rafting boat and everything was going really badly wrong. And I
Yeah.
was still in the boat and I could still see people falling out of the boat for about 20 or 30 seconds after my mum woke me up. I'm sure other people have experienced that, where they've had a dream that's so intense that when they wake up, it's still kind of partially visible. But what you're saying
Yeah.
is you're
Yeah. I've
quite
never
sure
had.
that you were actually awake and conscious when this
Yeah, I was.
happened.
Yeah, I was quite sure that I was big. I never had those kind of dreams, when you would wake up and actually see
Yeah,
dream overlay the reality. I've never had that in my life. I've never seen something that's not there. Never.
right.
Before, you know, just that it happened, right? Like, and that was there. That thing was actually there. So I freaked out and I tried to move, but I realized that whatever it was, it paralyzed roughly like it didn't fully paralyze, but I had trouble moving my. I remember I had trouble moving my left left arm, and so I was trying to stand up, and somehow I managed to stand up and get off the bed. So I was not fully paralyzed, but like roughly one half of my body was, like a little
Okay.
bit, um, yeah. And so when I stood up, I was about to yell. I was about to start yelling, who are you and that kind of stuff, but I couldn't speak. So
Oh
whatever
wow.
what I was trying to speak, it was in my head. And that's weird because in your everyday life, you can distinguish your thoughts from your voice.
Yeah.
But when this happened, it was as if the voice I'm hear, like the voice you hear yourself when you actually speak through your mouth was actually in my head, which is weird because like you can tell your thoughts are different kind of than your voice.
Yeah, when I'm
But in this
thinking about stuff, I don't hear my voice in my head. I just
exactly.
have thoughts. I don't actually hear a noise. But are you saying you
Yeah,
basically you could hear yourself talking, but it wasn't coming out of your mouth?
yeah, yeah. That's exactly what happened, and that was strange. That was
Mm,
like I've never experienced that before. So, and what was weird because I was basically I freaked out, when I stood up and I was about to yell, and in a flip second, I went from freaked out to calm. I was perfectly calm, like in snap, in an instant, I was calm. And when that happened, this being made 2 or 3 steps forward, came a little bit closer, and I looked at it into its head, trying to figure out whether it has eyes and stuff like that, and I couldn't see any features on it. It was just like a black, outlines of a child, person, right?
mm,
And so when we made, head to head contact, I'm not gonna say eye to eye contact because I couldn't see its eyes.
yeah.
Then it started speaking. It said to me, "Don't be afraid. Time's not what you think it is. You will be okay." And when he said, "Don't be afraid," I was about to say something, but it overlaid that voice. So it was also weird because the voice sounded like my voice, but yet my voice was overlaying that voice.
Right.
So that was weird. But anyway, I stopped in a second and I let it, say whatever it was gonna say, and that's what it said, right? Like, don't be afraid. Time is not what you think it is. You will be okay. So after he said that, I connected in my head. It has to be the craft. You
Right.
know, maybe it's aliens, right? I connected it in a second, right? So I said, "Who are you guys?" That's what I said, and he said, "We are you."
Wow. Which is pretty
Yeah, and that,
wild answer. That's going to be like confusing,
yeah,
pr pretty, pretty weird as well. I guess when you first wake up, are you thinking there's an intruder in the house and that's why you want to shout at it? Because I think what most people would, their first thought would be, what the hell is this person doing in my room? Am I
yeah,
being burgled or something?
exactly. I was about to scream, right?
Yeah,
And yeah, yell at it, right? And I freaked out. But again, in a snap second, I went from freaked out to calm.
right. And you were standing next to your bed at this point.
Yeah, yeah, I was standing right next to my bed. Yeah,
And then after it says "We are you," you black out straight away. And something
yeah,
I haven't included in the animation, but did you say you hurt your knee or something like that? So you literally came down on the floor.
yeah. I came down on the floor. I felt a thud, right?
Right.
But that's it. I don't remember anything after that.
But the next day you wake up and you're back in your bed again. You're not lying on the floor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm back in my bed, like nothing happened. But I remember it clearly.
Mm,
And the strange part about it is that the following days I had I had flashbacks. I went on with my day. I went to another job and I had these flashbacks. I had flashbacks not just about the shadow childlike person and the craft. Like those weren't flashbacks. I remember it clearly in my head.
yeah.
But I had flashbacks of something else. I had flashbacks of these couple very specific images. So like one image is me laying down in kind of like a curved hallway. It was curving towards right, and the ceiling was all metallic with weird kind of grooves, and it was lit up, but I couldn't see the source of light out of it. It has no sorts of light, like a light bulb or whatever, right?
So just the whole room
And
was well lit, but you couldn't actually see any light fittings
yeah,
or
yeah, it seemed
fixtures.
like the lights. It seemed like the lights were kind of behind the grooves,
Okay.
and yeah, I had um, flashes of me being up in the sky on an angle. So I remember these thick white clouds again, and I was looking at it from a very strange angle. It was not like kind of, like being flat and looking, like clouds, right?
Right.
I was on angle. So I remember that. um, I remember turning my head towards right and seeing uh, a woman on a table, and she had red hair, long red hair. She was naked, and the table was not the table, with four legs or anything like that. It was like a block, basically, like a big
like a
metal block.
that's coming out of the floor.
Yeah, yeah,
So you're
yeah.
not
I
on a
remember
table
seeing
with,
that.
and were you on the same table, or could you not really see the table that you were on?
I could not see the table. Again, it's just the images. I don't. It's not like a video repeating in my head. It's just the
Right.
images, like flashes of it, right?
Like
And
like snapshots of memories, perhaps, but not
yeah,
full on
yeah,
kind of working
basically,
memories.
yeah, basically just the snapshots. And I kept thinking what it is, and I just could not really comprehend what is going on. Like I again, and another weird thing is, at the time I had an Apple Watch, which was tracking my sleep and all that, and Apple Watch was basically showing that I had 2 hours from 3 o'clock to about 5 disrupted sleep. Basically, I wasn't sleeping, and
And this is the night of the shadow being and the missing time. You did you
yeah,
notice it the next day on your phone or something that your sleep tracker is showing that there are 2 hours from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m.
yeah,
where
that's
your
correct. Yeah,
sleep tracker was disturbed by something. Is that
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, and I still have the data on my phone. I have,
yeah? If you
like
send me
I
that
sent it to
image,
you.
have you already sent it? I think you have. So I'll when I
Yeah, I did.
edit
Yeah,
this, when I put this edit together, I'll flash that image up on the screen so people can see your phone what you saw on your phone screen.
yeah. And basically, this is the second case of missing time. The first case of missing time is seeing the craft, and the first case is like when seeing the craft, and the second one is same night, basically after seeing the shadow being. So
But after the seeing the shadow being, you pass out. So
I passed
you're
out.
not thinking there's missing time. You just see something on your phone app that
Yeah,
suggests to you that something weird happened between 3 and 5 a.m. Otherwise, your phone would have
y-
just recorded you sleeping like it normally does.
yeah, exactly. And I'd
Okay.
like to mention again, I want people to be skeptical, right? So I'd like to mention, like the sleep trackers aren't super accurate all the
Yeah.
time, right? Like they would they would fail to track small movements, like within a couple minutes, for example. Or sometimes when I meditate, they would think I'm sleeping, but like they would absolutely record longer period of time.
Mm.
Like they would kind of, like the software would figure it out, right? So like I was weirded out,
It's a bit
like
like if you run up and
where was
down the
I 2 hours?
stairs. If you run up and down the stairs, it might not pick that up. But if you go for a jog, it'll work it out and it'll get the distance pretty accurate and the amount of steps you've
Yeah,
made.
yeah, exactly, right? Like, I had cases when I would go meditate, for example, and he would think I'm sleeping.
Yeah, that kind of makes
Like,
sense.
yeah, yeah. So, um, I don't know, what I was doing 2 hours, where I was I in a bed, just moving around,
Mm.
having a bad dream? I'm no clue, right? But I do have, I do have that data, you know.
Yeah, great. So that's the shadow being event. And was there anything that happened in the immediate aftermath of that?
Yeah, yeah. So
Apart from
basically,
the flashbacks, obviously.
yeah. So basically, next 5, 6, 7 days after that, um, a lot of strange stuff happened. Like I would wake up and I could feel someone touching me, on the side, on my back and that kind of stuff. And I would wake up and try to look at it, and I couldn't see it. Um, and then I would realize that the walls, because I would always sleep against the wall would look like a liquid, like a surface of water, while the wall, like the ceiling would not look like that. So that was,
Oh wow.
yeah. So like that kind of stuff, and I could just not. Um, it was just not logical. That's the thing. I would always try to challenge myself. I'm like, Mario, are you hallucinating? What's, maybe there's something wrong with my head. Like, but again, then I would go on with my day, and I would be like, well, why is the wall right next to me? Why was it looking like a liquid and the ceiling wasn't?
Yeah.
Like, if you're if you're hallucinating, then everything would look like that.
It's a very
Like,
specific hallucination, isn't it, for just the wall next to you to be
yeah,
rippling.
yeah. It's just not logical. It makes absolutely zero sense. And this is why I kept it kind of it kind of got me hooked. It kind of got me hooked, and I kept trying to figure out what's going on, because every time I would try to chalk it up to hallucination or something like that, it would just simply not make sense.
Yeah.
It's not logical.
People who are new to this channel or who just haven't been involved in looking into UFOs for very long might not be aware, but it's actually a relatively common thing among close encounter witnesses for those witnesses to experience strange events that happen in either just before or in the immediate aftermath of their close encounters. So you hear about the what's called the hitchhiker effect that happened to various UFO witnesses, but most notably the people that went to do research at the Skinwalker Ranch. Some of them came away, went home, and then had bizarre paranormal encounters happening at their homes and
Yeah,
even to their loved ones as well. So it seems like if we take these witnesses seriously, that there is some kind of knock on effect that happens when you have a close encounter. And it's like either the black triangle turns up and then for some reason you become interesting to other paranormal or anomalous phenomena and suddenly they start taking an interest in you. So you have a triangle sighting, then you have a poltergeist event, then you see a shadow being. It seems like it's either that or these things are all part of the same phenomena, and for some reason, for whatever reason, certain people have UFO encounters, and then for some reason they also get to have these other things happening to them, and I'm not sure. I've got no idea why it
yeah,
is. Lots of people come up with different theories, um,
yeah. That's right.
but
Yeah,
you are not alone in that. In the fact that you had this triangle encounter, and then you had other experiences afterwards that completely baffled you. And was
yeah.
that something that in the aftermath you looked into and you heard, oh, there are other people who saw a UFO and then saw a shadow being, or there are other people that saw a UFO and then started having other weird paranormal experiences.
Okay, so here's how I. Yeah, you're absolutely right, and this is what makes it so difficult, right? Because if you're a rational, logical person that tries to find some sense in things around yourself, um, seeing a UFO may not be that shocking. Like, it would be shocking in a sense that, oh well, they're real. Like, and maybe other people aren't that crazy. But it's shocking in a way that experiencing these other things suggests that um, it may be a little bit more complicated than, like just some random being
Some
hopping
alien
on
from
from
Venus.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so like it just you just can't comprehend it.
Yeah.
You're trying to understand it, but you can't understand it, because like to see the craft, it's you can accept that easy. Like, it's the chances are that we're alone in the universe are, I think, pretty slim. Like, universe is vast, right? But how do you explain everything else that happens after seeing the craft? And
Yeah.
what you mentioned, hitchhiker effect, this is what happened to me. So basically, I quit that job because of these weird experiences. I basically ended up having trouble breathing through my nose, and it was strange. I would like kind of like have to lean toward one side to be able to breathe, and then the other one. It it just made no sense. And then like trouble sleeping at nighttime.
Mm.
Like, I would wake up to see like the walls looking like liquid, while ceiling is not. Like, it's just it's confusing, and you're trying to understand it and you can't understand it, and then you keep hearing footsteps around you and nobody's around you. That's another thing.
And
And
that's another classic poltergeist description as
yeah,
well. A lot of people that hear noises in their house, they hear banging on walls, they hear footsteps.
yeah,
Um,
I at the time I heard a lot of footsteps, and it terrified me so much that I actually quit that job, that
so
very
this is
specific job. I quit it.
that's the job that you were at when you have the triangle and the shadow being sighting, that house was part of your job, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I
So
quit that job. Yeah, like
was that because you thought that being in that job and being at that house was what caused these things to happen? So you thought, if I get away from the job, then I'll start
yeah,
living a normal life again.
exactly. And that's not what it happened. So I quit the job, and everything stopped for like a day or two, and it started happening in my apartment.
Right. What happened in your
And
apartment?
that same thing, footsteps, knocking, like knocks on the walls. But then what started happening in my apartment is visions. I would have visions. It's and for people that are listening to this, like when they hear visions, they'll wonder what kind of visions, like how does he mean visions? Well, imagine you're watching a TV and you just start seeing weird stuff, like just and not just one thing. It's just like it's like a whole reality shifts into something completely different.
Not on the TV
And
screen, in the room with you.
yeah, exactly. And you just snap out of it and you're back to where you were. This is what used to happen to me often. So for example, I'll give an example. So it started, I remember the first vision that I had. I was watching a TV, sitting on a couch, and suddenly out of nowhere, instead of watching TV, I'm looking at numbers. So it's a wooden table with something that looked like A4 paper on there, and there would be a big number on it, and it would constantly change. So I remember 42, 8, 16, 24, and there were a couple other numbers, but it would just keep changing, and suddenly you snap out of it. And for someone that never, like if you're the person that never had, you know, any kind of hallucinations, visions, and stuff like that, it's shocking.
Mm,
You start to wonder whether you're losing your mind
yeah.
or something else is going on with you. And um, it was just whatever it was basically followed me home.
Right. And so that's 2023, and now fast forward, as we say in the video, we fast forward to 2024. When was it? Was it April 2024?
Yeah, that's right.
And so you're back in your apartment in the city, and you're a different man at this point. You're meditating, specifically trying to initiate another UFO sighting. Is that fair to say?
That's right. Yeah. So basically, a year forward, almost a year, right? A year, some I don't know, months. But so at that point, I had started looking into the subject. Started researching it. Um, the I basically was thankful. I realized that based on what I saw, whatever I saw, um, I kind of what I had in my mind is, like whatever they are, they answered the cosmic phone call.
Yeah.
So like, and it seemed to me that they had good intentions, like despite, like weird occurrences after, it seemed to me that, like intentions in general were good, like they told me that I'll be okay and
Mm,
not to worry kind of thing, right? So I started looking into the subject, after the first two events, and like towards, fast forward to this, I was a different person. I knew what it was, and I was so desperately trying to initiate another contact. So for months, after, I kept trying to meditate. I kept trying different ways to meditate. I kept changing locations. So basically, I sort of knew what it was, and I kept trying to. Let's see now.
maybe
So
that'll
yeah, I
help.
kept trying to initiate. Yeah, maybe that's
No,
not really,
I
but
apologize to
that's okay.
people watching that your camera keeps going out of focus. It's just something we've got to deal with because we're not finding a fix for it at the moment. But that's okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I kept trying to initiate another contact, and so I found the gateway tapes on the internet, and they were not specifically for this kind of stuff, but like it's a topic kind of close to the ufology, so to say, in a way.
It's
And
almost a
I
perfect
kept
mix. It's a mixture between meditation and UFOs. So I can see
exactly,
why you'd be attracted to it and to explore it further.
yeah, yeah. So I tried to use that to initiate contact, and but it didn't work for a couple of times. It didn't work, and that specific night, I was sitting on my couch meditating, listening to tapes. At some point, I just said, not gonna work. Like it's I better stop. Let me just go for a smoke.
Hmm.
Like always. So take the headphones out, earbuds, and I go out. Slide the door open. I go outside on the balcony, and I spread my arms open, and I look up in the sky, and I say, "Where are you? Why can't I see you again? I want to see you face to face. Can you please come, show yourself?" And just like that, I saw what initially looked to me, because the sky was very dark. It looked like a giant triangle, but it wasn't, and it just flew over from the building opposite of me, over my building, and I was shocked. So I kept looking up, and I kept looking, up around, kind of thing, trying to see where did it go. And I went to the right side of my balcony, and I looked towards my right, and I was like, maybe it went over there towards the south side of the city.
Ah, okay. So you're thinking maybe they've flown off somewhere else, and you're
Yeah,
looking over the right hand side of the balcony to see where they went. You're not
yeah.
thinking
I thought that they
they're waiting for me to go over to the right hand side of the balcony before they show themselves
no, no,
again. You were just thinking,
no, no.
I hope I get to see them again.
Yeah, yeah. And they came out of just from around the corner. Three of them, three balls of three like silver-ish spheres.
Right.
They
So
were like, yeah,
yeah,
they were
now
right
it
behind each other, kind of thing.
so I've got them in the correct position, but I haven't managed to reproduce the the surface of the orbs, which you said were
Yeah,
kind of like a bright silver, but not shiny. Is that right? Just give us
yeah.
the best
So
explanation you can of them so that
okay,
people
so the
know
best
where I
explanation I can
haven't
do
quite got it right.
is, yeah. So they basically the surface of them looked like they were silver, smooth balls, like
Right.
spheres. They were obviously physical, and you could almost see little kind of like grooves, like kind of bigger scratches or stuff like that. Like
So
they were not
a bit like
super
brushed
perfect.
metal, a bit like
Yeah,
brushed or
like brushed
scratched
metals.
metal.
Yeah,
Okay.
like that kind of texture. That's what
Yeah.
they had. But what was weird about it is that they had some sort of um, field or something like that, just off of them, couple of inches. They had this like a blur. Like take the object, any kind of object. And I've seen this, like a long time ago. So this is the analogy that I use. Like one of them Samsung phones. Take a picture of a specific object and apply blur that's maybe 10, 15, 20% over that object. This
Okay.
is what they had around them. But yet you could still see some details on it, right? It was not like it did not completely blur it. It was like looking at the fish in the water.
Okay.
So you could see that it's in the water kind of thing, and you can
Yeah.
still see some details on it, but obviously there's water. You can
You
see
can tell
water
there's
over it.
something around it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the way they moved was also very interesting. They moved as if you're moving a mouse cursor on 30 hertz refresh screen. So
Right.
like it was like they're leaving a trail behind, or they were simply hopping forward in like very tiny kind of super short motions. So uh, it was not like they were hopping like a rock on the water, in a sense that they were going from
Yeah,
here
so
to
they weren't
here.
bouncing. They were just going from one place to the next. Just, I mean, how accurate is the movement? Because I did try and get
You
that skipping
you got it.
motion.
Yeah, you got it nearly perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it nearly perfect.
Because I think
But
some people when they watch this, they might think, oh, Finn has recorded this animation at a low frame rate. It's not. It's filmed at this sighting is 60 frames a second, and so the stuttering effect of the orbs moving is how it's meant to look.
yeah, and that's what we mentioned at the beginning of the video. Like, it's very hard to recreate some of these motions and textures and what they have
Mm,
around, because there's
yeah,
just no reference to. And like, I struggle personally to explain it to people, to you as
yeah,
well, because I have no reference to anything, like
mm,
in our daily world, outside the world, that resembles that movement outside of, like, again, it looks like a, cursor on, like, mouse cursor on a slow refresh a desktop screen, right?
yeah,
That's what it looked like. And how do I explain that to people? It just makes no sense, right?
yeah.
And
It's
even
a
even
tough one.
even if I yeah, even if I go and explain it to people that are into ufology, they would think that the object was skipping from here to here and kept going on like that. No, it wasn't. It kept on skipping in like tiny little short motions. Like, it
Yeah,
was like kind of like if you dot, like the line, on a paper, something like that. This is how it went. But the dots behind would disappear.
yeah.
It makes no sense, but I saw it from 15 to 20 feet away. That's what it looked like.
And it's always interested me once you told me how they moved that this sounds quite similar to what everyone who's ever studied UFOs has heard of the Kenneth Arnold sighting that happened in 1947. That a lot of people cite that as being the birth of modern UFO sightings. There were other sightings before his of similar shapes, but he describes what he saw as like a stone skipping across water. And so what the, the image that produces in my head is of something bouncing, right? But I'm wondering
Yeah,
if that was just the best way he had to explain it, and actually what he saw was what you saw, which is something skipping from one place to the next, not bouncing and um, like a stone skipping on water, but actually
yeah,
just skipping from one frame to the next and leaving a bit
yeah,
of a trail behind it. It would be amazing
yeah,
if that was actually what he saw. It might be that what he saw, what he
yeah.
explained is exactly what he
Uh,
saw, but I think there's a chance because there are other people that have seen similar or described it in similar ways that what he saw is closer to what you describe, and this is actually very similar to the previous animation I did with Colin Sanders, where he describes that as the triangle tilted up, he said it was like someone turned on a strobe light and you could see it tilting upwards in kind of flashes of movement rather than one smooth movement.
yeah, yeah. That's I yeah, that's very similar, and it's a very specific detail. That's
Mm.
what stood out. Like, when it comes to that sighting, that was mind blowing. I just could not forget that. That was
Yeah,
the
it's a
detail
really
that
really interesting detail, and
yeah,
it's like it's something that for me, if it's not just something where you're like, oh, maybe they were moving weirdly. It's like they were quite distinctly moving weirdly. It's like these aren't drones. Drones don't move like
no,
that. They wouldn't
no,
move in a formation like that. They would have lights on. So
yeah,
it seems like the way it moved is one thing
and
that
that
if you take that seriously, we can rule out a lot of things, a lot of mundane
yeah,
possibilities, just because of the movement alone.
yeah, exactly. And as they flew away, so they were in a formation of three, so basically one behind each other, but just staggered to the right, I think, or left. No, left.
Let's have a look.
No,
How did we
staggered to the
settle
left.
on it here? So as they come out from behind the wall,
Yeah, no,
I've got
they were
them
staggered
so
to the left. I remember.
yeah, so that
So
they're one behind the other, going off to the left, basically as we look at them now.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And as they flew over to that building, they rearranged themselves in like a more kind of lineup, like a linear formation, and they went like a snake, and they went around the
Mm.
building, and they lit up. And it's not the
Yes,
balls, it's not the physical balls that lit up. It's whatever that is behind, like around them.
the field
It's what
around
lit
them.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah, it lit up into the bright white light. And that's also very specific, I'd like to say,
Mm,
for those that are listening. It's not, oh God, how do I explain this? It's not like seeing a light bulb. The white light that lit up did not project or emit light onto anything, onto the building right next to it.
right.
This is very weird. And it looked like a liquid light, liquid white, like a lava or something like that.
Okay.
So it's a very specific type of light. You'll never, like, once you see that, you'll never forget it. It lit up, but it does not project light, and it looks like lava, like a white lava, so to say.
Right.
So it's very, very, like, once you see it, you'll never forget that.
That's something that other UFO witnesses say. The UFO witnesses that describe seeing a UFO that's emitting light. I've heard it regularly where they describe it's a very specific type of light that they remember that is not like normal light that you see coming out of most objects that emit light. So it's not like a light bulb. It's not like a glow lamp uh,
Yeah,
or in some cases, an LED, or it's like they say it's a very specific type of light of its own that they haven't seen elsewhere, which is a
yeah,
really interesting detail. And the
yeah,
fact that
yeah.
they
It
lit
doesn't
up once they got a certain distance away, it seems like as they get to a certain distance, it's almost like looking, I don't know.
it's
Do you,
almost like as if they didn't want to burn me with like radiation or something like that.
yeah, what do you think
know?
about that? Do you think that they were actually turning on a light as they got further away, or do you think it's just something to do with the angle or the proximity that once they get further away, they just, for some reason, take on a different visual kind of space or
Clearly they
different.
wanted, clearly it was a show off. I said I want to see you face to face, and they literally came in front of my face. And when they turned on that light as they flew away, it's not like they sped up, they didn't move
Right.
faster, right? So I kept trying to think why, and I'm like, well, and someone on internet a while back pointed out, like, well, if you're not lying and you actually saw these orbs, you would be burned, by radiation, right? So I don't know. It's possible.
I mean, it could just be that they're showing off. It does seem like this is a demonstration for your benefit. That's what it seems like. So if they're
Yeah,
showing
and
off, that wouldn't be a surprise. If they're trying
yeah,
to impress you or they're displaying their different capabilities, seems like that's
yeah.
a
So
plausible
perhaps
explanation.
maybe, yeah, maybe they just didn't want to burn me. I don't know how else
Hmm.
to explain that. Like, it just makes no sense. Maybe you would think if it's like a type of propulsion, like they would speed up, if they turn on the light, but they did not. They they
Yeah, because
they were moving at the same pace.
that is something that occurs to me that when like when a space shuttle is coming in through Earth's atmosphere, we see this big kind of wall of plasma on its nose that builds up basically as I think, I'm no scientist, so I'm going to butcher this, but I think it's basically that the air is ionizing, and that's why it becomes certain colors, and it's doing that because of friction. So a guess would be that maybe these things are powering up, and for some reason that causes that external field around them to basically light up the air around it to kind of
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
it's
Yeah,
like
that's what I'm thinking too.
maybe it's exciting the air molecules around it and that causes them to glow or something, or maybe it's something completely different and we'll never understand why it did that. But it's a really interesting detail, and they do it all three times, don't they? As soon as they are a certain distance away from you, they light up.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people mention, like, oh, they're plasma beings, right? No, they were clearly physical,
Right.
and whatever it is around them, it is what lit up.
Yeah. And so this happens three times. They repeat this, like they really
Yeah,
are responding to
yeah, and
your
that was
requests.
another yeah, that was another very shocking thing, because I said after they did that first time, I said, "Can you repeat that? I
Hmm.
want to see it again." And they did the same thing. They flew over, same motion. They came around, and this time, I knew that they were coming out of that corner, so I expected them with my eyes, and looking there, and they came out, and I said, I mean, what was shocking is that they could hear my thoughts. So I said, because I wanted to see them face to face, I said, "Do you want me to go out of town, so we can meet? I want to see you face to face." And they flew over again. And at that point, I just ran inside the house, and I put on sweatpants over my pajama, jacket on, and I ran downstairs. And what you don't have in animation is I went down to the parking lot, and I was just standing beside my car, and I looked up and I said, "Do you want me to go north? I will go north out of town." And they literally flew towards the north, like all three of them, in a formation that is same formation as they did when they came just around the corner, like three of them in a
So
kind of.
when you get down to the car park, are they just hovering above the apartment or something?
No,
Where were they?
no, they came from a. My building is on the right. They came from a little bit on the south and just over me towards the north.
So you're about to get in the car and you're looking up, thinking, "Where are you? Are we heading north?" And they just
Yeah, I
come
just said,
come over
"Do
your
you want
head.
me to?" I was looking up and I said, "Do you want me to go north? I'll head north out of town." And they literally flew towards the north from like behind me, south
Okay.
to north.
So you got in your
Yeah, and
car.
I was excited. I hopped in my car and I was driving, and I could still see them. That's the funny thing. I was on 97th Street, and I could see them. Like they were slowly following me. And on a couple of occasions, I would look uh, toward my left, and I would look up, and they were there, literally. And I was driving. I got to Anthony Henday, which is a highway that goes just around Edmonton, like in circle. And as soon as I crossed it, I looked up and I couldn't see them anymore. And I kept driving further north, and they were not there. Like I lost them,
And that was it. That
or
was
they
the end of
lost
that.
me. Yeah,
Right.
that was the end of it. Yeah.
Now, people will be wondering, Finn, why didn't you animate that? That's an important part of the story. And the answer is because it would have taken a very long time to do that. It would have been very complicated, and I had to kind of pick what I was going to animate here. Um, Otherwise, this would have taken like 6 months instead of the month that it's taken. So I figured it'd be better for you to just tell us that part of the story. So that's an incredibly wild experience to be wanting to see a UFO, to walk out on the balcony, and then to have three orbs paying very close attention to you, giving you all their attention. They're like, "Yes, we're here," and then you're asking them to basically repeat what they're doing. Can you do that again? And they do repeat it. A lot of people will find this really hard to believe. What would you say to those people? Because I know from experience there are lots of other people who have very similar claims to yours, and I know some of those people, and I've got to know you, and I think you're a pretty down to earth, sensible guy who's just trying to live a normal life like the rest of us. So, what would you say to the
Yeah.
people that are just like, "Come on, Mario, really?"
I would. What I would say to them is stay skeptical. There's lots of bullshit in the field. Um, question everything. It's okay if you don't believe me. I understand.
Mm,
If I didn't see what I saw, I would never believe someone like me. That's a
right.
fact. So I do respect. I do respect the
The
fact that people
the
find it hard to
disbelievers.
believe, because it is, yeah, because it is hard to believe. Like it's one thing um to see a UFO once, but
Mm,
it's completely unbelievable to see, like to have three events and like all these other things happen.
yeah,
So I understand. It's okay. Like I'm just I'm here to tell everyone my story, and like to people that wants to hear it, and
yeah,
that's okay. Like I seek no publicity. I'm nothing to gain out of this. In fact, I could actually be labeled as a cook, because I work as a social worker. So
yeah.
it's like it can only be worse for me for telling you guys all this story.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't benefit me in any way.
Yeah, and you're not going to jump onto the conference circuit and start selling books in
Uh,
America. because
No,
that is
absolutely
an
not.
option, you know, Mario. It's always an option. Jump on that
There's always
conference
a book,
circuit.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's always a book.
So was that your
Yeah, I
last
know.
paranormal experience, or did you have other things happen after that?
Yeah, so like after the seeing the orbs, like whatever the like what do you call a hitchhiker effect is, it kind of like became more intense. And so like for next couple of days after that, I had experience with that as well. On a couple occasions, I heard, like loud growling noise in my apartment,
What,
which
like a
makes no
dog?
sense.
What sort of a
Like a
growl?
lion or something like that.
Wow.
Like, like scary stuff, right? And like footsteps again, you know.
That's
And
while you're wide
people,
awake.
well, I'm just sitting here watching TV, and I hear that kind
Wow.
of
Okay.
stuff, and I'm trying to figure out where is it coming from, like is it my neighbors, like are they
Mm.
keeping a lion, hiding a lion or something like that in apartment above or below, is the door open of my balcony? But no, like it just doesn't make any sense. I even went as far to call the building management and ask like what kind of pets do they have registered in apartments around me. Like like how do you explain that? And it
Yeah.
came out of my room.
What did? What, the noise?
Like the noise, the loud animal
Yeah.
roar kind of thing. Yeah, it came out of my room, so I got scared shitless. I didn't know what to do. So
I can imagine. I
and
mean, that would scare the
yeah,
crap out of me.
yeah,
And
lots of footsteps and stuff like that. Like how
but
do you?
that's actually, people that research poltergeists, that would be put in that basket. The weird noises from knocking on the wall to electrical disturbances, lights turning on and off, TVs turning on and off, but also scary noises. And this reminds
Very
me,
nice. Yeah.
yeah, the growling reminds me of Max McCabe, who I've animated a video for in the past. And he had a similar thing to you where he had a period of his life that was, I think it was just over a year long. And I might do more, well, I'm planning on doing more animations with him in the future. But one of his, um, well, I really don't know what order these things happened in because I haven't listened to any of the podcasts he did in a couple of years, so I have forgotten the order. But Max had, over the course of, I think, around a year, he had multiple unambiguous UFO sightings. He had a shadow being sighting when he's in his living room, his baby is crying, he walks over to pick the baby up, he turns around and there's a shadow being standing in the doorway to his kitchen. It shoots across the room and goes out the back door into the garden, and I think he loses sight of it. So that was
Yeah.
shadow being. He then also had an experience where he's out in the back garden having a cigarette, and he hears loud, very scary footsteps stomping towards him. He thought he was going to die. There's nothing there at all. That's just another kind of poltergeist experience. I think another one is that he wakes up in bed as someone kicks his bedroom door open, but there's no one there. That's another classic poltergeist. That's just poltergeist.
Yeah.
Whether it's real or not, this is what people report, and we label it as
Yeah.
poltergeist experiences. And I think later on, he's having a barbecue in his back garden, or his neighbor is, and he talks to his neighbor, and she mentions that she heard weird noises at exactly the same time that he had weird noises happening in his house, knocking on the wall, the door being kicked open, things like this. So, this the UFO sightings coming very soon before
Packet.
or after these types of paranormal events are certainly not unheard of. There are many other witnesses that make the same claims.
Yeah, they come in a whole package with like all sorts of weird things. Um, I'll just say there's a couple other things that I want to mention that are could be interesting, right? So
Great.
there's two more visions that I had, and there's one time when I was sleeping, same like 3 o'clock in the morning. I wake up, and I wake up because something slapped me on the shoulder, and I would turn around, wake up, and I would see this uh, outlines of a person, but I could see through. But what I could see through was fragmented. You could still kind of see through, but
like
it's
looking through a
fragmented.
crystal or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I would like look at it, and it would just run away through the wall. And so next thing you know, I can't sleep anymore because it doesn't make any sense. And there's two more visions that I had in days following the orb sightings, which they kind of have religious connotation, and they're pretty strange, so to say. So one of them is I found this later. It's like what they call a biblically accurate angel. I had no idea that it's that at the time, but basically, I was sitting on my couch watching a TV, and the whole room distorted. And when I say distorted, I mean the ceiling was bent. The walls were bent. The walls turned orange, like a golden orange-ish kind of, very kind of shiny. And in the middle of the room, there was a giant eye that kind of had a little bit of fire around, and the eye had three golden wheels. So there was a wheel on the left side, wheel on the right side, and one horizontal. The one that was on the left side was spinning really fast on its on the spot. It was not kind of like going around. It was just spinning. Like in the same spot where it was, just kind of like, and each wheel had eyes on it. The one on the right was spinning a little bit slower, and the one that was horizontal was spinning the slowest. I could see the eyes. And it pulled me, what it looked like, pulled me out of my body, and my vision suddenly turned 360. I could see all the way around.
Wow.
And it kind of pulled me towards it, and it started talking, and it said, and the reason why I think it's connected to this phenomena is because it said, don't be afraid. Same thing as what the shadow being said, don't be afraid. And like I realized that I can ask questions back, and it was for these kind of occurrences, it was a lengthy conversation, let's just say that. So I asked what's going, like, who are you, that kind of stuff, right? Like, what's going on, blah blah blah. And basically what it tried to do, it tried to teach me what the reality is actually. So it started with don't be afraid, and it said that we are all fragments of this giant something like a soul or consciousness, or in that sense. And so we're little fragments of it, and past, present and future already happened, I guess, or like everything that could happen already happened, or it just
Right.
kind of it's an ongoing simulation of some sort. And so we'll when we die, we'll just go back to it. And what else did it say? So basically it said that this whole phenomena is us from the other side guiding ourselves in for the purpose of that thing gaining more experience. It's kind of like I got the impression that it's much like ChatGPT, in a sense that how ChatGPT gets better and better with the more input that it gets, right? So this is the same thing with our experiences. It gets better and better. So it's leading us on a wild goose chase kind of thing. But again, I want to put a big disclaimer over this. Don't trust me, okay? This is just what I saw, right? I don't want you to trust me. It's just I don't want you to believe me on this one, because I don't trust myself. I'm not sure what's going on, so I don't know, right? So this is just an interesting thing. And the second one is my room. Same thing. Watching a TV, day or two after, I think, and the room multiplied, kind of like in that movie Tesseract, like in that movie Interstellar, when he's in the Tesseract, and you have the same room multiple times. But what I saw was more kind of connected. So there was a lady that had blue skin, and she looked like a goddess of some sort, like a
She was
Hindu
super
goddess
hot.
or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Had like a golden ornaments around, like a longer face, like very kind of pretty looking woman, tall. And I looked at her, she looks at me, and she steps from what seemed my room, just another version of my room. She steps into my room,
Yeah.
my actual room, and says nothing, but points finger at random objects. And when I would point my finger at same object that she was pointing at, the object would turn into light, and that light would turn into like a wave,
A waveform.
basically.
Sorry,
Yeah,
carry on.
the wave looked like, if you remember from early 2000s when you would play music in Windows Media Player
Yeah.
and you would turn on equalizer,
Yeah.
right? So it would just not move. It would just be kind of still, one
Wow.
kind of wave. And she would turn random objects into wave and light. And then she would turn me into same thing and her into the same thing.
Right.
And then she would show me the whole world, kind of going over a layer over a layer. And finally, I asked her, "So, what is God?" And she didn't say anything. And I said, "So, is God like a musician? Like someone has to make a sound or frequency or something like that. Is he like a musician or artist?" And she just nodded, said yes. And I came back, snapped out of it.
Wow. How long did that experience last? It sounds like a quite an in-depth kind of vision.
Yeah, it seemed like forever. That's the thing. There's no sense of time. There's no sense of space. Um, it's like time doesn't exist. It's infinite. That's what it felt like.
But after that, you didn't have missing time. You weren't like
No,
so
no, it was
obviously.
like being gone for like 5 seconds, just
Wow.
closing eyes and waking up. But in my mind, I was gone into what seemed like infinite. Like there was just no time. Time was not a constant. I know. Again, I know it sounds crazy, but again, for those that are curious, and again, these last two things don't take serious. I don't want anyone to take it serious because I don't know. Maybe I'm just being messed with. Um, you know, doesn't mean it's real, right?
Mm.
It's just the
So
phenomena is very tricky. Like it shows you what you want to see, or like it may not be all true, right?
yeah, I think that's a very healthy way to approach it. Um, so let me check here that I've asked you all the questions I wanted to ask you. I've put orbs lighting up when distance, same as Vegas 98. What happened in Vegas in 98? Orbs lighting up when distance. Vegas 98. Oh, it's the animation I did of the three boys
Okay.
sitting next to the swimming pool. And the blob comes over from the distance. They think it's a plastic bag in the wind or a balloon, and it gets closer and it ends up hovering right above the neighbor's house and changing into a flying saucer. And when that flying saucer suddenly teleports to being over a distant mountain, it lights up and it's no longer a metallic saucer, it's just a light in the distance. And the guy that I worked with, Mike, the guy who was the main person I worked with to recreate that, he was very specific about that. Because at first I just had the flying saucer zipping over the mountain, and he said no. As soon as it was far away, it just looked like a ball of light. But when it was close, it was not emitting any light. It was a metallic flying saucer. So that's very similar to what you're describing. That once they got a certain distance away, they just look like the whole thing is emitting light. So I thought that was
Yeah,
a really interesting detail.
yeah. There's lots of little details that I think a lot of people aren't paying attention to when
Yeah.
they're reading, when they're researching into the subject.
Mm.
Um,
And that is
there's
actually one of the
lots.
lots of little
Yeah,
patterns that the phenomena sets that are repeated across different witnesses. And it's one of the
yeah,
things, one of the reasons why I've made this channel is so that we can watch all these videos and we can compare and contrast the different sightings and see what do they have in common, what do they not have in common. One of the things that turns up in in multiple of different animations that I've done is this flash that seems to attract a witness's attention in a certain direction, and then they have the UFO sighting. So people who want to go
Yeah,
back and look through my animations, you'll notice that happens in at least 3 of my videos. That it
yeah,
starts with a flash. The witness looks in
yeah,
the direction of the flash, then they see the UFO.
yeah. I'd like to
Um,
say something to that. So, like before the orbs showed up, there was a flash
oh
on the
yes,
south
you mentioned
side.
this. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But again, the reason why I'm not gonna say it's the orbs, and I generally refuse to mention it,
yeah, we
is
didn't include it in
because
the animation for this reason, did we? That you're not sure that it actually was UFO related.
exactly that's another important detail that people should pay attention to, in order to understand what's going on. Is so basically what I saw was also a flash that was still like for probably about 10 seconds. But the problem with it is that in that area of town, there's lots of helicopters with searchlight. It's a problematic part of town. Okay,
Okay.
and what I'm trying to say is the phenomenon doesn't want to be seen clearly. It's so it will repeatedly show itself, possibly, in my opinion, where like when and where it can be debunked easily, by some of these sightings. It will use that kind of stuff as a cover, perhaps.
Hmm.
So that's something to pay attention to.
So that flash you saw, you think maybe it was something to do with the sighting, or it could have just been a distant aircraft, a distant helicopter that's
I
turning
can't
around, searching for
I
criminals or
can't
something.
say 100%. Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
say 100% because I'm trying to be objective here
Hmm.
and not just say, oh yeah, it was a flash. It's definitely orbs. Yeah, because I know in that area there's often helicopters with searchlight because it's a
Hmm.
problematic area. Like I could go out on a balcony now and I'll probably see one. But
Okay.
it was very interesting because it was like just standing there again, no sound. Like
And
um,
this was a quite a distant white
yeah,
light.
yeah, yeah, just
Okay.
still for 10 seconds. And again, I didn't keep on looking at it because the orb showed up.
But it was in the distance over the right hand side of the balcony, or beyond the right hand side of the balcony. As we're looking at
Yeah,
the orbs when they come out from behind the wall, you're saying that this light was in that direction, quite far away,
yeah,
over a
yeah. But you
different
could
part of the
still,
city.
yeah. If it's a helicopter, you could still hear it faintly. Like you can hear the faint sound.
Mm,
But again, it could have been just been. I can't say 100% it's that.
yeah.
I'll only talk about what I saw, what I know that I saw, and like even that, I will always say there's the first basket. I know what I saw. It was physical, like the craft, shadow being, and orbs. There's a second basket that of my experiences that are I'm not 100% sure what it is. Like those are visions. Like roars and footsteps and all that kind of stuff. I can't really. I don't know how to explain it. I didn't see
Mm,
it with my own eyes. I don't know what it is. So this first basket, I know what I saw. There's second one, I experienced it, but I don't know what it is. So it's I'm just trying to be objective, right? I can't say
yeah.
for that's like it is that because I'm not sure.
So when you say I know what I saw, this is something that, like, language doesn't do the subject justice. So, a witness that has, let's say, for the sake of example, if we're talking to some skeptics, let's say, for the sake of argument, that some of these witnesses are actually seeing what they describe. How can we know that for sure just from listening to their story? We can't. We can't because we weren't there.
And
But the best
yeah,
thing that most witnesses can say is, "I know what I saw." Because it was so unambiguous, it was right in my face. I know I wasn't mistaken, right? I know it wasn't a Chinese lantern. If it was, I wouldn't be here talking about it. But the skeptics
yeah.
will say, but there are plenty of people who say they know what they saw and they were mistaken. So what would you say to those people? Is there any way, any kind of language you can use to convince someone that you did see what you claim you saw? Or
Well,
is it just,
without evidence, I can understand their point of view.
yeah,
It's understandable that like if they did not witness one of these things, crafts or beings themselves, their reaction to it is completely understandable, and
yeah,
I personally respect it. I think everyone should. Perhaps one of the ways to Um, check to some degree whether people are telling the truth. This is just my idea. Perhaps compare the patterns, little details that we just mentioned with other sightings. There's lots of little details that people overlook.
Yeah.
Check whether the person has something to lose, whether he's a known drug user. For example, me, I work as a social worker. I can't go and use drugs. Like I have no luxury of that. Even though, again, I want to be objective and transparent. I did try, like DMT, like recently after I saw
Yeah,
all these
you
things.
mentioned that, and
Okay.
that sounds like something that it's like
Yeah.
if you came to me and you said, "Oh, I do DMT all the time and I love the occasional mushroom," then I
Yeah.
might not have
Exactly.
been as quick to believe you. But when you say, "No, I only took DMT afterwards because the UFO experience made me
Yeah. I
fascinated with
tried.
that world."
Yeah, I tried it first time month and a half ago, way after all of these sightings. So
Mm,
I was in my right mind, sober, and again, I work as a social worker. I can't go on and take mushrooms. Like
yeah.
they last forever. And like how do I how do I go to work, right? Like I can't do
Yeah.
that. Okay, so like, and again, you know, a lot of people would not say, that they tried, like this kind of DMT, for example. But
Yeah.
like again, I want to be transparent, objective. I will say, I have tried, but it's way after. Okay,
Mm,
so just because I'm fascinated with this world and I'm researching on my own, doing stuff, I want to know more and that kind of stuff. Like, it's just I'm curious, right? Just like
yeah.
everyone else.
Yeah, so you want to
But
explore that more, that idea of, and DMT is the one. I'm too old and too chicken to try it. Maybe I will at some point, although it's probably quite hard
yeah,
to get hold of where I live. But I have heard about it and I'm fascinated by it because we hear so many people who explore the DMT molecule um, as, um, or is it a compound? I don't know how you, I'm no scientist, I shouldn't even try to be. But you hear a lot of people saying that they basically have similar experiences to what UFO witnesses describe. So they see the aliens and the or they see something like aliens when they're on DMT, and more notably, it's like those aliens are trying to communicate with the person that's on the DMT. So what I'd say to
yeah,
you is, do you think, having done DMT, now you kind of know what it's like to hallucinate? So does that,
yeah.
when you look back on the triangle and the shadow being and the orbs, is there anything about it that makes you think, actually, maybe I was just having some kind of wild, random hallucination that had nothing to do with taking any drugs, but was still a hallucination? Or do you think that now you know what it's like to hallucinate, having been on DMT, that actually puts you in a better spot to rule out hallucination as the cause of your experiences?
Yeah. So having experienced both, again, sightings, events that I had sober, never tried it at the time and all that, and having experienced EMT way after, so I have experience with both. Uh, no, I don't think that there is, obvious connection.
Mm,
I don't think I was hallucinating because I know how the drug induced hallucination looks like.
yeah,
It is completely different than this, but there are some connections in between subjects. Again,
yeah,
this is just my personal observation. So, when we talked about orbs, the way they move, um, so the way orbs move is that skipping motion, very short one, kind of
yeah,
like strobing, whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
is how on a very rare occasion the DMT entities would move on open eyes hallucination. So like
right,
it doesn't happen often. Um, I saw it only once, maybe twice, but on open eyes before you go into the world, if they show up in front of you, this is how they move. Same type of motion. While
right,
nothing else is moving in that motion, they actually move in the same exact same motion as the orbs. I don't know how to explain that.
right.
I'm not a scientist researcher. I just like it's just an interesting observation, right?
Mm. Because when I was probably about 19 or 20, I tried mushrooms with a friend, with a good friend, and we ended up doing them a few times. And the one thing I noticed, I was too much of a wimp to take a heroic dose of mushrooms and enter a different dimension. So I would take like 20, 30, or 40 magic mushrooms that were growing locally nearby. And one thing that became really apparent to me was that I could always tell when I was hallucinating. There was never a
Yeah,
moment where
yeah,
where I thought, "Oh my God, that's wild," and then later remembered, "Oh, that's because I was on mushrooms that I saw that wild thing." It was always very clear to
yeah,
me that what I was seeing that was weird was caused by the mushrooms.
yeah. Like, so seeing a UFO in your right mind, sober, it is not a hallucination. I'll just say
Yeah,
that.
it
Um,
doesn't.
I,
Nothing about it reminds me of
yeah,
hallucinating. It's like no,
yeah,
it just
nothing.
reminds me of seeing a parked car. It's like there's a parked car. Oh, there are two black triangles hovering above the motorway. That's what it was like for
Exactly.
me.
Yeah, yeah. You saw black triangles on 3 occasions, right? Three
Yeah.
occasions, and it's nothing like it. They're not wavy, like it's
Mm.
not a. It's clearly not a hallucination. It's a physical object that is there. And but again, people will use that kind of stuff, like maybe, like skeptics would be like, well, maybe, like if you tried mushrooms way before, like, and you saw triangles a couple of years after, they'd be like, well, it's um
Yeah.
like maybe you just kind of, like that's a symptom where, like people that tried LSD acid or whatever, right, like a couple
Yes.
of years after, they can kind of
Acid
plunge into it or
flashbacks. They
whatever.
call them flashbacks, and I think that's. I've never had that happen. I don't know if I ever did hallucinogens often enough to, or whether it happens to people that do them more often or it just is a random thing. But I have heard of that in the past when I did research into hallucinogens. Probably before I took mushrooms, I did a lot of research into it and read a lot of trip stories online. And I remember reading, yeah, a few stories of people who said that it was like 5 years after they took acid, and then suddenly they felt like they were tripping again after they took a drag on a joint, or something weird happened to them, that then they felt like they were tripping again, and it was quite disturbing.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
knew,
So
but they knew that they were tripping again. It's like they could tell
exactly.
that it had something to do with the acid.
Yeah, exactly. And like skeptics would bring that often. And again, like you're trying to explain something that you're sure that doesn't exist. But it's, like people will label you as unreliable witness, which obviously, like I would never go on and claim that I saw something while I was under influence of these, like of DMT or whatever. Again, I
Yeah,
saw it before. For you, they could perhaps, explain your sighting as something like that,
yeah,
um, but yeah, like, those that had both experiences, they know the difference in between hallucination
yeah.
and actual physical thing in front of you. And like what we both saw is the actual physical thing that we were lucky enough to see, right?
Mm. So, do you think that you were just in the right place at the right time for the triangle sighting, or do you think that it is more likely with the context that actually you kind of summoned it, or you became interesting to the phenomena, so they picked you out?
So I would not say that summoning, like saying that I summoned it, I think it would be wrong thing to say. I don't
Don't
think
Yeah,
that
we don't want to go
just,
full Greer. We don't want to go
yeah,
full
I don't.
Greer.
Yeah, exactly, right. And I was not inspired by his stuff. I just happened to like use meditation. Again, I was not a religious person, so I had to use something to calm my mind at the time. But I think that there is obvious connection in between consciousness and this phenomena.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. I would not say that I summoned it. I would say that I perhaps got their attention.
right,
Um, but yeah, I don't think it's possible to summon it at, well, when you want. It just does not work that way. I have tried. I have
right.
tried. I've tried different types of meditation. I have tried different location, like lengths of meditation, different times. Like I would try it on Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday. Does not work. Like it will work once in a year, and
Yeah,
when you
but
least expect it.
with that in mind, you said when we were working on the finishing the animation, you said you didn't want people to think that listening to the gateway tapes would be an easy way to get a UFO sighting. So you don't feel like that the gateway tapes meditation actually caused the orb sighting, even though it happened within minutes of you taking the earbuds out, or do you think that
No, no,
maybe it
I
was
don't.
the cause?
No, I don't think so. Because first time I did not listen to gateway tapes. I was just listening to
Right.
random meditation sounds off YouTube.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, clearly, it's not the gateway tapes, it's something else.
Right.
What exactly it is, I don't know. Perhaps it's just enough to go and project intention, or like just do basic meditation.
Yeah.
It could work. It could not. It might not work. You don't know, right? You have to try it for yourself. But it's not the gateway tapes. I don't want people to get the idea. It's again. I've tried so many different meditation types, different ways, and all sorts of things. It does not work. It's not on command. Like it will not work when you want it to work.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see if there's anything else. I think we've got. Oh, the shadow being, because of the place you work being a place where you were caring for people as a social worker.
Yeah.
That place was quite secure, and the doors would have to be locked at night, that kind of thing. So you're pretty sure that it wasn't just some random guy who walked in off the street and you think you saw a shadow being, but actually it was just the dude next door got lost, and it wasn't one of the people that you were working with. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, this is what I was saying with orbs and a flash. Like it would. This is why I think what I think. It's that it could use time and place where it could, like your sighting could be easily debunked, right? So I tried again. Also, as I said, I tried to challenge myself multiple times and explain what I saw by some reasonable, skeptical, logical explanation. So with what I came up with is that initially that it could be one of my clients upstairs that came downstairs,
Right.
or someone off the street.
Yeah.
Again, like I don't know, right? Like it's but it's just not possible, like the things that it said. And also I was behind double locked doors. It's
Right.
not like, and it's a door that have like the closer, automatic closer. They close themselves and
Yeah.
they're locked. You can't just get in.
Yeah.
And again, I work with disabled people. It's not like
Mm.
some of them will come down, like wheelchair or whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't work like that. So, but again, like a skeptical person out there would be like, well, it's probably his clients.
Yeah.
Right. So this is why I think, and also the searchlight on a helicopter that often happens on the south side, like when I saw orbs, like, so this is why I think the phenomena is using, like certain, like,
It likes
it'll show itself. Yeah, it'll
to
show itself
quote
when it
Mick
could be
West.
debunked. Yeah.
To quote Mick West, coined the phrase low information zone. The low information zone is the place where you've got a photo of something, but it's blurry and it's in the distance and you think it's a UFO, but it could just be a Chinese lantern. That's the low information zone. It could still be a UFO, but it could also be a Chinese lantern, so we'll never know one way or the other. That's the low information zone. Well, it's
Yeah.
my strong belief, based on knowing that the phenomena is real, but also knowing that 99.9% of the evidence out there is nonsense, it's hoaxes, it's misidentifications. With that in mind, why have we not got better photos? And the only reasonable answer for me, when I really think about it, is that aliens don't pose for selfies. Why don't they pose for selfies? It seems like if the phenomena is real, and you and me are here to suggest that it is, it seems like the phenomena is aware of our ability to prove it. And it lives in the low information zone, and that's where it likes to live. It likes to live in a
Yeah.
place where you and I can have these really close encounters, but the majority of other people can think Mick West is probably right. It's probably a Chinese lantern.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Exactly.
it's a
And
bizarre state of affairs, but that is where we find ourselves.
yeah, exactly. And again, I want people to be skeptical, but please
Mm.
consider that what we just talked about. Consider that
Yeah.
because it did not happen to me on one occasion. It happened to me on two occasions, and I have tried to debunk myself.
Yeah.
I have tried to explain what I saw with reasonable explanation, logical one, skeptical one, and also what I did mention so far in the interview is that I went as far as to call the military base that is north of
Yeah,
Edmonton after
yeah.
the first sighting. Yeah, and because I kept reading. I kept reading, it's UFO, like it's
It's
all
a
these photos of what I saw,
TR3B,
it's
Mario. It's a
UFO. Yeah,
TR3B for
yeah,
sure.
exactly. So I'm like, I said to myself, listen, Mario, it can't be UFO. It has to be something from the base, on the left, right? And so I called the base, and I played stupid. I played stupid initially. I said to him, it was a sergeant on shift, something like that. The guy that was, on the phone, right, or something like that. The phone call lasted 16, almost 17 minutes, and so basically started with. So I asked him, like, are you guys? I said to him, like, last night I saw something above me, some sort of craft. Are you guys flying something, some super weird technology over my house? Like it's like you could spook my kids, right? I work as a social worker, right? So a social worker. And he said, oh, what did it look like? And I said to him, well, like it looked like a UFO, but I'm not sure, right? That's, it's not identified, right? So I'm trying to find out, right? And if you, and I said to him, if it's not yours, then like perhaps it's a concern because like it's right next to the military base.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, that's interesting, so what did it look like? And I'm like, well, like it made no sound. And he had like it made no sound, it was just hovering and then just flew away towards the east. And he's like, are you sure it's not a balloon? And I'm like, well, it's a very strange looking balloon, and he started laughing, like, and so he's like, so was it a flying saucer? I'm like, no, it was a triangle shaped craft, and he got serious, and
When you
that's
so
when it
when
clicked
you
in my
only
mind.
once you said it was a triangle, he suddenly got really serious.
Yeah, yeah, he was no laugh anymore. he
Wow.
he asked me whether I took any photos. Am I sure I didn't take any photos, videos, that kind of stuff? And he's like, what else did you see on it? And I'm like, I saw three, lights underneath in each corner, one white lights, had no sound. He's like, well, okay, so it's not a helicopter, and I'm like, sir, did not make any sound, like when you guys fly helicopters at that same height, that thing is loud.
Mm.
What I saw had no sound. And he's like, interesting, like, so how come you didn't take photos? And I'm like, well, I didn't think of it, to be honest, right? But that phone call made me, again, I tried to debunk myself,
Yeah.
like, and clearly they didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So, so once we ended up the phone call, I was like, okay, well, this whole subject is real. There's something to it, like based on, like reaction and conversation we had, it's real. But again, I tried to debunk myself. I challenged myself multiple times. It just I don't, like it is not a hallucination. I know what I saw.
Mm.
I'm 100% sure of it, right? There's the second part that I'm not sure of it, and I mentioned it, right? It's a visions and all that. I don't know what's going on with that. I
Yeah.
don't know how to explain it. But there's the first part, like these events that you animated. Is I know what I saw. I was in my right mind, sober. It was there.
Yeah. And so to wrap this up, how has it affected you since? Has it been like depressing, stressful, concerning, or has it been really cool, or is it like a mixture of different things?
Well, it opened it opened way more questions than I got answers. Like I have way more questions now than I had before. Like I just don't know what it is. I still don't know what it is, just like everyone else. I'm trying to figure out. I'm not claiming, I'm not jumping to conclusion. I'm just trying to find some answers, and
Yeah,
I
I
can't find
noticed.
any. So that's been frustrating. Like it's
Mm,
just. But overall, I see my experience as positive because clearly, if I go by what they said, in my room when I was, like when I woke up in the middle of the night, I would say that it's positive, because it seems to come from, like kind of they were caring, right? Like they
Yeah,
showed up in times when I needed them, and they said, "Don't worry, like it's time now. What do you think it is? Right?
yeah,
You'll be okay." So like I can't say it's been negative. There's been some spooky moments, but overall I would say it's positive. I don't think they had bad intentions or anything like that. So at times a little bit stressful. The whole subject is frustrating,
yeah.
but the experiences are positive, and that's how I would put it.
Okay. And what about disclosure? Have you been following the news on that, and what do you think about it? All this stuff that's happening in America.
Well, I think, yeah, I've been following it just like everyone else. I think everyone else that either seen the craft or people that are skeptical but interested in the subject. If those who think that there's more to it.
Mm.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know how whether we're gonna get the disclosure from the government. Because there's to me it seems like it's not just little aliens hopping on a craft and coming from another planet. And again, I mean, it could still be that, but based on my experience and perhaps yours, there could be the subject could be much more complicated. So I just don't see the government disclosing that.
So, what do you think when some of these people that are coming out, like people like Lou Elizondo, when they say we do actually have really good photos of some of these objects, do you believe them? Because part of me is just like, but they don't let civilians get good photos. We haven't got many at all. Like maybe one or two that might be real, but are probably hoaxes. They're just too old now for us to grab the guy by the throat and say, were you hoaxing it or not? So it's like, it seems to me like if the government has got good evidence, like they've got really good high definition photos of a flying saucer with an alien staring out the window, if they've got something like that, why don't we get photos like that? So that would suggest to me that either it's because they don't have that sort of evidence and we're being lied to, or that the phenomena treats the government and the military differently to how it treats the civilians. Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it seems like it seems like it treats us people in like more like it approaches us from kind of like
In a different way?
benevolent, more, yeah, like while government gets, like they think it's malevolent, right? So
Hmm. We certainly
it's
do have different behaviors. Like the military has these nuclear missile incursions where and UFOs hovering around nuclear sites, whereas it seems with the civilians they're not interested in the car that we're driving or the boiler in our house. They're interested in us. Like so, it seems like a direct contact with civilians, but more of a like a probing of the military where they seem to be testing the military out, maybe demonstrating how advanced they are over the military, maybe demonstrating that we shouldn't be playing with matches when they turn off nukes. So
yeah,
yeah,
it
I would
seems like
agree.
they
It definitely seems like
yeah,
there's a different approach to us as there is to the military by the
yeah, I
phenomena.
mean, just look at like my experience, right? Like they said, don't worry, like you'll be fine, kind of thing. And the orbs, if I go by like how they turn on the light as they flew away, but not when they were close to me, like if I go by explanation that they did that because they didn't want to hurt me. So they treat us civilians, normal people differently.
Mm,
And it seems like they see military or government officials as threat, like because it's like if I go by what Louis Elizondo said in a book and all that, people have been hurt, right?
right.
So maybe they see military and government as threat and us normal people not involved in anything as they don't see us as threat, like they're friendly.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's everything, Mario. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No,
I think
that's all.
I think we've covered everything. Well, thanks very much for working with me on this. It's been a pleasure working with you. It was a nice, I mean, it was a challenging project, but it's been really
Yeah,
fun working with you. I've learnt a lot of little tricks and things from the modeling and the animation process. And I think your story is an important one. I think it's really good for people to be able to hear stories like yours and then to be able to compare them to other people's stories and realize that people like you and Max McCabe are not alone when you say that you've had a sighting and then you've had these bizarre other experiences, which I'm sure is
Yeah.
very challenging for some people to believe. But
Yeah.
those people should know that there are lots of witnesses who have similar stories.
Yeah, because it doesn't fit neatly into the ET hypothesis, right?
Mm.
Because
And
it just doesn't.
it seems to like so many researchers who are in this long enough seem to all reach the same conclusion that this is much more than nuts and bolts and that consciousness is a big part of it for some reason,
It
whether it's
definitely is.
the
Yeah.
telepathy angle or the this kind of predictive nature that some of these sightings seem to have, where they seem to know where you're going to be next and then they turn
Yeah.
up, like Dave Fravor's cat point moment. There are lots of other witnesses that have their own cat point moment, and it
Yeah.
seems wild, but it's happening regardless.
Yeah. I wanna actually, now that you mentioned that, I do wanna explain the telepathy, um, how it feels and works, because uh, it actually, I think a lot of us experience it on a daily basis. I think majority of people have experienced it, they just don't think about it and they don't know. So I always use the same analogy, and I want to say this before we end the talk. It's just think about, let's say you're invited on a funeral of someone you didn't know, right? And you go there, you have no reason to be sad. And so you go there in kind of good spirits just because you're invited. You don't want to be rude or whatever, right? And you get there, and there's lots of people, family members and friends of a deceased person, and they're sad, right? So suddenly, all the sadness gets projected to you. You came in good spirits just because you don't want to be rude, but you become sad because you see all these sad people, and people crying and that kind of stuff. And so the telepathic moment that I experienced in a staff room at nighttime at 3 o'clock is much like that. But it's not only the emotions that gets projected, because again, in a flip second, I went from freaked out to calm. It's not just emotions that they're able to project, it's the information as well. So like you get emotions and information shoved into your head in a second. So with that being said, I think it's certainly, like I think people have experienced it, just like on an emotional level, not informational. Maybe some people experience it on a like information level, like how some people say, I was thinking of you and you just called me, kind of thing. uh you know to someone that they didn't talk to for a year, and
Yeah,
suddenly they get a phone call, right? But so a lot of people, I think, experience that. They just don't know. They don't think about it. So
right.
did this telepathic moments with these beings, they're like that, just on steroids times 1,000, plus information.
And yeah, that's worth discussing. Is that when what I've done with the audio is that you say, no, you don't say anything. Do they? They speak first and they say, "Don't be afraid. Time is not what you think it is. Um, you will be okay." And when I did that, I did it using the same voice that I've got for you narrating, and for you when you
Yeah.
say, "Who are you guys?" So, and is that accurate? That basically, when you heard the voice in your head coming from the shadow being, it was speaking using your voice. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I was just about to say something when it started speaking, and whatever I was gonna say, it overlaid my voice. Like
Right.
that, I don't know if that makes sense, but like it was my voice, but not my voice. So when I was gonna say something, it went over that voice.
And when you normally are thinking about stuff, you don't hear a voice in your head. Is that accurate?
No,
So when you heard your voice coming through as a message from the shadow being that's standing in your room,
yeah, it
at
was
the
very strange.
time, are you like, why is my voice? Why is it my voice? Or was
Yeah,
everything happening too quick?
yeah, it was just, it's very difficult to explain. Like I
Mm,
just can't explain it in a way people would understand. Like you have to experience it for yourself to understand. I felt like a puppet. Like
yeah.
that being was manipulating me like a puppet. I did what it wanted me to do. You know, like I went from freaking out to calm, not trying to attack it. It was just I was like a puppet. Like it's under complete control of whatever it was.
And how accurate did I get the shadow being? Because I remember asking you, did it look like it was like fog or something? Were the edges moving? And you were like, no, it was just like a solid black
Solid,
figure.
yeah, like a solid, yeah, like a solid black person with no features, you know. But
Mm.
it made me
And
think. It made me think when you were animating. You know, I noticed a lot of details. For example, one of the details about orbs is the distance that we kind of figured out when you were animating. So, like, one of the things that I noticed about the shadow being is that because it was standing in front of the source of light
but it
and
didn't
the
cast
light
a
was coming,
shadow.
yeah, it didn't cast a shadow. So I
How
just,
ironic that
I,
a shadow being doesn't cast its own shadow. It's like
yeah,
it wants
so
to have its cake
I,
and eat it.
yeah, so I kept wondering whether the light source from behind was making me not see, you know, like the features of it, or it
Right.
was just like that. I don't know, right? But like it's something that I never thought of until we started animating. You got it fairly accurate. You had maybe longer, sorry, not longer. You had maybe bigger wrists, a little bit
Okay.
larger wrists, and a little smaller ankles. But that's about it. You know, like you got everything else right.
But it had the same
So
slightly large head, but
slightly large head, yeah.
not like super obviously larger than a human's head. Just a little
No,
bit.
no, just a tiny bit larger. And with that, I wouldn't say it was like alien type of large. It was
Okay.
just when I say like a childlike person, you know, child's like kids, you know, they have like a big head for their bodies kind of thing,
Yeah,
right? So like
they absolutely do.
I don't know what it was. I don't know whether it was actual physical being or some sort of projection.
Mm,
I've no clue. Like it's just it was so odd and specific, you know, like
yeah.
with what he said, and you know, like the way he said it, especially, you know, don't be afraid kind of thing. It's
Mm,
like some people go stuff like how like why would it? Well, it makes sense he would say that, right? Because you're freaking out, but like it's I don't know. I just don't know what to think about about it, right? It makes no
mm,
sense.
yeah. Yeah, I'm just as baffled as you are.
What confused me in the whole thing is what did it mean by we are you? You know, like I got the impression that it's not just future humans or something like that. It meant something on a deeper level. I just
Mm,
and you know that's what you said. You know, with information transfer and emotion transfer all at the same time. Like there was some context and meaning to it. I just don't know what it is. Like I'm sure that it's not in a literal sense that they're just humans. It's
yeah.
not that. It's something different, but it meant it. I just don't know how. You know, like in what way. So that is one of the things that's been on my mind ever since, and I have no answer to it. It's been very frustrating to, you know, trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mario. This has been a really interesting interview. It's gone just over 2 hours we've been talking. So we've
No
got
problem.
a lot of information in, which is great because I think the more info we can get from each witness, the more useful their story is for people that research it in the future. So thanks so much for sharing your story. Thanks for coming on
No
the
problem.
channel and doing this interview. Um, and I
My
think
pleasure.
we will cut it there. Cheers, Mario.
That was good.
Take care.
Cheers.